Thank you very much for coming, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Loren Schoenberg. I'm the Executive Director of the Jazz Museum in Harlem. I'd like to thank you very much for coming to yet another one of our series of Harlem Speaks. We're in the midst of, it's been almost 3 years now, of starting a jazz museum in Harlem. And as we're looking at bricks and mortar and looking at an actual site, we're doing these events. And today is going to be a very special one because the gentleman that you'll be hearing from is a very special person, a very wonderful artist, but more about that in just one moment. This series is every other Thursday night, as you know, and it's recorded for our archives. These will be part of the archives of the Jazz Museum in Harlem. I'd like to acknowledge here the co-producer of the series, Greg Thomas, and Wilhelmina Grant over here, who is also a very important part of our staff. And I'm going to request, can we get one more chair to put up here, because we have a special person who's going to join us here. This is kind of one of the first public announcements we're doing in here, that my co-director, the Jazz Museum in Harlem, is the internationally well-known, wonderful educator and one of the great bassists of all time, Mr. Christian McBride. And Christian's going to join us. Why don't you move it a little, now we're going to move you a little more in towards the center here. You're in the center. Oh, no. You are the focus. This is Christian McBride, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up, man? How you doing, man? Good. Let me see.
Our guest this evening, who you are going to find out a lot about this evening, is someone who, as you heard on the recording that we were playing outside, personifies jazz music. I walked in, I heard that CD playing from outside the room, and I heard that vibration, and I heard that voice, and I just said, I want to open that door, I want to go in that room, because jazz is in that room. And he is sung internationally, nationally, locally, composer, and everything. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Allan Harris is here. And the way we're going to do this in kind of an ad hoc fashion is we're just going to gang up on this guy here and get his life story. I'm going to actually hand the mic over to Christian for a hot moment here and just get your thoughts and reflections. Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll do it that. Your thoughts and reflections on Allan, what people should know about him.
Well, you know, Allan and Loren and myself, we worked together a couple of times in Aspen, Colorado at the Jazz Aspen Snowman Summer Program, which Loren and I are the co-directors, co-artistic directors of, and Allan's come here to represent the vocalists for 2 summers. And there's always been this, particularly in the last, I would say, maybe 25 to 30 years, there's been this wall between the vocalist and the instrumentalist. And Allan is very much one of the few people who knows how to tear that wall down and to be able to have the instrumentalist respect and the instrumentalist have his respect because he knows what he's doing. And within the last, like I said, in recent years, there's been a great divide between vocalists not really understanding anything other than the lyric. And there's been a divide with musicians knowing everything but the lyric. And I think Allan certainly bridges that gap better than anyone else. So I'm really glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be here. This is wonderful. Yeah. Between these 2 lions, these young lions, the new guard.
Oh, don't say
that. This is like I'm going to have to give up my vocal membership card after today. This is wonderful. For a number of reasons, it's nice to be acknowledged, but also what Christian said, and I'm going to talk about that later on, and I'm sure you're going to delve into that. What it is to be a vocalist and why is there such a lack of knowledge with vocalists as far as their performance is concerned, as far as their camaraderie with musicians such as Christian or Loren, who has spent their whole career honing their craft, not taken for granted. And as a vocalist, I've come across that with my peers as vocalists, that the majority of us do take it for granted for no reasons, but we'll get into that later. Right now, I'll
just second what Christian said. As someone who's worked with a lot of singers myself, there's two kinds two kinds of people that you work with. And the one kind is the person who's on the bandstand who, as Christian alluded to, doesn't have really, there's not a great deal of respect between the musician and the singer and the musicians. And then there's the kind of singer who, if I may say, we think of, who musicians think of as just another musician. He happens to sing. She or he happens to use their voice, but we think of them just as we think of another instrumentalist. And that's how it is when you work with someone like Allan Harris. So I'd like to jump back to the beginning and ask you when, why, not what, not why, when and where were you born? And how? By the river. That's a good tune, I think. Why was I born?
That's right. It's good house.
Why am I Loren? No, but seriously,
Yeah.
how did it happen? Where
I
are
was
you
born in
from?
Brooklyn, and my mother, my family is originally from North Carolina. My mother's part of the family, and she's a classical pianist. She was the first graduating class from performing arts. My aunt and her. Matter of fact, next door to us was Arthur Mitchell. He was going to take me to the hospital the day that I was born, and my father got into a fight. It's a long story, and anyway. Anyway, there was music always in my house. And Louis Armstrong used to come by.
Wait. Wait a moment. There was a fight about taking to the hospital with Arthur Mitchell.
Yes.
Don't pass that one.
Well, we'll get back.
Okay, you'll come back.
Yeah, I'll come back to that. Yeah. My Aunt Kate had a soul food restaurant right down the street from the Apollo Kate's place. If you look on the cover of Home Cooking of Jimmy Smith, that's her restaurant.
Really?
My Aunt Kate. So we used to, every Sunday, there was a matinee for kids. And back then, you had to dress up. You know, you didn't have to wear your pants down by your butt. And you had to dress up. Wear bust-bound shoes. Wear bust-bound shoes? Okay. You had to dress up. And Sunday, we sat there between my aunt and my mother, and you watched the show. And it could be anywhere from Sarah Vaughan to Marvin Gaye. And at the end of the show, we'd go and get a free meal by Aunt Kate's right down the street. So we'd see everybody there, from Clyde McFadden to Billy Eckstein. So I grew up in that environment all my whole life. This is like a natural progression for me. I don't know do anything else. This is what I do. And went to school in Pennsylvania, Cal State, small little school. Studied there. I had numerous teachers. I'm also a guitarist. And not to ramble any further, leading to the point that I am now, I'm just a seasoned artist who's traveled the world, a few recordings on my belt. Been fortunate enough to play with the likes of Christian McBride or Loren. It's been just a wonderful ride for me, and I'm still on it.
Thank you and good night.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Now, could you tell us a little? You also have some roots in Pittsburgh,
Oh,
which is a
yes,
really great jazz town.
Yes, it is.
You know, George Benson, Ray Brown,
Great.
Grant Green, so many people.
Right.
I'm sorry, Grant Green is St. Louis.
Mary Lou Williams.
Mary Lou Williams,
Yeah,
Billy, of course.
Blakey.
Roy Eldridge.
My grandfather had a 600-acre ranch there, and he was the only black meat rancher in the world, the only one in the world. And we took that over when I was 12 years old, and we moved there. I spent my summers there, and he had horses, and I learned how to ride. And it was just a natural progression. I spent my summers on his ranch there in western Pennsylvania, outside of Pittsburgh. And from there, I used to trot into town all the time. Into Pittsburgh, it was 20 miles into Pittsburgh, and just cut my teeth on the cats who were there. It was a wonderful, Cecil.
Right.
It was just a lot of.
Was Tane there?
Tane was young though.
Right.
I'm only 27. Let me put that right now. Tane's 18.
Okay.
You mean Cecil Brooks III?
Cecil Brooks, yep. Cecil Brooks, yep. He used to play he played with my brother in town. My brother's a saxophone player, and it was a good proving ground for me because I thought I was all to be all when I got up on stage with those cats in the Berg, and like with any of the guard, they told me to go home and learn some songs. I was 15 at the time, and that started me on my journey with this wonderful music called jazz. Seriously, I've listened to it all my life, but never woodshed until I got my face burned off. And Pittsburgh did that.
When and how did singing actually start for you? I mean, when did you start opening your mouth and start singing songs? Was it at home? Was it in the church? Was it in school? Was it all those things?
It was a combination of both, but in the third grade, each student, you sit in alphabetical order in class. I don't know how they do it now, but it's alphabetical order. I was H, my time came up, and you had to do something, read a poem, write something. You know how it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. My mother was so involved with. I was such a bad boy. You know, she was there every week up into the principal's office, so she monitored my whole life in school, as far as my grade school was concerned. And she found out that my time was up. She made me sing the song, literally forced me. Blue Velvet. Today I can't hear that song. She wore blue velvet. I can't hear that song to this day. All right, and she did a wild version of it for me, and I sang it in front of the class, and I got an applause, and I did it, like with all of us. That was the bug.
Wow.
I said, that's what I said. I said, oh, especially there was a little girl, Adrian King, in the audience. I had to, you know, had to thank for Adrian King. You know, I couldn't get her attention all term long. Well, we got it. She said, I didn't know you could sing. I said, yes, I do. I do sing. I sing well. And that started me. I said, well, let's, my mother, of
Girls
course,
do it all the time.
Girls do it all the time. That was it. And I decided I better get serious with this. Since learning the standards, I was fortunate enough to be once again in Pittsburgh, being with a guard who believed that in order to hone your craft, you must go back to the book, learn it exclusively, learn how the lyric is done, read it down, the melody, and get your craft to the point where you can get on stage and have to deliver a lyric that people can understand. And I'm thankful for that.
Was there a particular a record? I mean, I know you had the vocal bug brewing, you know, from Mom and everything. But was there a particular record or album that you heard that really just struck you right here and told you that, you know, this is what I want to do, kind of like this?
Yeah, there was a couple of them. One, my Aunt Theodosia used to, Aunt Edie, we call her Phoebe. She used to put this on. You could always tell when she's a wanton woman, beautiful woman, you know, and she went through men like water, you know. She was, and she used to put on a record, Billy Eckstein's, If I Told a Lie, I Apologize.
Oh, I love that.
That was it. That was it. She was home. You know, she was home. My mother, Aunt Phoebe's home. There'd be a light underneath the door, and you couldn't go up there and mess with her, you know. And she played that song over and over again, in the album over and over again. And that hit me, because I understood what diction was up until that point, you know. I was young, and I was into Motown and Marvin Gaye and that. And after hearing that record, and plus live at the Sands in Nat King Cole, there was a few, it made me understand that in order to deliver a lyric correctly, I need to articulate.
It's very true. Every time you sing, everyone can understand every word.
That's my mother and me. That's
That's
that. It's called child abuse back now, but back then it's called
discipline.
discipline.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what it's called, you know. And that had a lot to do with the way I deliver a song now. If I used to have to read it down in front of my family, actually read a song down. They would give me a tune, like Stardust or whatever, and I had to read it as in prose, right in front of them.
Can I ask you, could you do that with some lyrics, some tune that you like, so that the folks, because, you know, for us musicians, we know what you're talking about.
Okay.
But I'll bet you there's a lot of folks here who've actually never heard a singer read a lyric as words.
It's pretty hard when you're not used to doing it. It takes a while because you bring a lot of pathos to it. You're worried about, is your college, is zipper open? You know, it takes time to cut all that loose and just throw yourself on the top. I'll do one for you. East of the Sun.
Sure.
That's a generic song. East of the sun and west of the moon, we'll build a dream house of love, dear. Near to the sun in the day, near to the moon at night. Live in a lovely way, dear. Living on love and pale moonlight. It goes on and on. I don't want to bore you with it, but you get the idea. You must first understand what the lyric is about. I was really surprised when I hooked up with you guys on Aspen how well you know every song I knew. It was frightening. You play with young cats, they don't know. They're just into, I just know the way Coltrane does it. They don't know the lyric. I remember turning back on a jam we were doing, and I saw these guys actually mouthing the word along with me. That was pretty daunting. It was, but anyway.
Well, I know that, you know, that in terms of that we share, that there's some intersections here. Like, you know, our musical tastes, some are different and some are the same. I know one person I think all three of us would be nuts about would be Frank Sinatra. You know what I mean? In terms of knowing lyrics and like, and you know, I mean, we were doing, speaking of jam session, we were doing a jam session in Aspen last year, and a great band, you know, and we're in this, in a house, and Christian starts playing a tune, you know, we're gonna warm up, and like, it's a tune that like I've never in my life played in a jazz setting in my life, and I'm trying, it was da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, Tender Trap.
The Tender Trap is like this great old Frank Sinatra song, but like, unless you're a Frank Sinatra nut, you wouldn't know that song. And it was a lot of fun to play, actually, because the chord changes were different. Who were, so you mentioned Billy Eckstine. I had the opportunity only one time only to work with Billy Eckstine. And I heard what they talk about when they talk about women swooning. You always hear that these vocalists could make women go berserk. I never really believed it. I read it and I heard about it. He was already, you know, 70-something years old, came out on the stage out in Eisenhower Park in Long Island, came out, and all of a sudden I heard like, ah. You know, I mean, I really heard it like 1,000, I just heard a swoon.
You should have been with me. I was a child of 8 at the Apollo with my aunt Theodosia, my mother on either side. Now this woman who put me to bed this woman who put me to bed with a look, a stare. I saw when Billy Eckstine came out on stage, my mother and Theodosia actually screamed.
What year was this?
I'm
1940.
96, 1964. But they screamed. I mean, my mother said, "Oh, Billy!" My mother saw it.
You notice he never answered.
And they flew up to the stage and left me alone. And it was frightening for an 8-year-old kid to see your mother, who you love dearly and fear, turn into this little girl. Yeah, he did make them swoon.
So my question to you would be, if you were talking to somebody, and in a sense you are, because we are recording these for the archives of the museum, somebody who never saw Billy Eckstine, somebody who never heard Billy Eckstine, somebody who doesn't even know the name Billy Eckstine, what do you think future generations need to know about that man and what he did and how he sang? What does he represent to you, to someone who has zero knowledge of him?
Well, he represents, along with a whole, there was a myriad of artists during that time, during the Renaissance of Harlem, that they were actually the first generation that were educated off the plantation. They were the first generation. The generation that was educated, that is. The first generation that came off the plantation, they were still in shock because they got freedom, and they were just still trying to find their way in the white world. The generation that my mother, she was 70-something when she died, they actually believed that in order to enmesh themselves into this culture called America, the melting pot, they need to teach their children, first off, how to talk properly, the neoclassical way, European, how to pronounce your words, how to cut loose that whole agrarian lifestyle, which you're now believing that we should go back to a little bit because there was discipline involved with that we need to bring into play. But what the younger generation needs to understand about Billy and that whole group of artists who came to New York out of the fields, out of the Southern lifestyle, Midwest, whatever, that their parents tried their best to educate them in the ways of the European terminology, music or whatever. You know, from bird or whatever, they all played the social dances early in the day, early in the evening, and late at night they came up here and jam. But they still knew how to read, they still knew how to carry themselves and conduct themselves in a way that could be acceptable to quote-unquote white society. Because it was just 50 or 60 years ago, people barely had shoes, our people. And then you know how to hold a knife and a fork. All of a sudden, boom, you're free, and you're caught in this maelstrom called the American dream. So I have to give kudos to those who were the forebearers of Billy and them, who said, this is what you need to learn first and foremost. Keep your blues, keep your roots, but learn how to pronounce the way they do. You know, Miles, he said it was tolerant in the 60s, but now we're realizing that it wasn't. It's just a way of surviving, which we need to get back to, I feel, in order to deliver this thing called the American Songbook and teach children. I'm rambling here, but I hope you're still with me. Still with me? Still with me? Still with me? Still with me? Which is why when you hear Billy or Nat or Sarah or any one of the vocalists during that time of color who were delivering songs for radio or whatever, they tried their best to deliver the song the way they think the generic ear of the country could, how can we blend in? How can we become part of this dream that Jews and Czechoslovakians and Irish and Italians have been able to get into it? What can we do? What better way to do it is to sing their songs and to talk and act like they do. And that's what they did. That's what they did. You know, Motown came around, just blew everyone's mind, of course. Well, that's a different thing, but that's what it was about.
Right from what happened? Oh yeah, right on that point there about Motown. I've heard a lot of great jazz vocalists say that as great as Motown was, and as part of an American tradition that started, that was the beginning of that wall being built between the vocalist and the musicians.
Oh, big.
And I'll be curious to hear, your take on how did that happen? Once like session musicians began making tracks without the vocalist, and then the vocalist could just come in and sing and make all kinds of mistakes and clean it up as much time as they need. I know at one point that wasn't the case. You had to hit.
And yet, right? Well, Sarah played piano.
Right.
Carmen played piano. I mean, Billy played trombone. Was it Val trombone? Val trombone. Nat played piano. I mean, you had to do something to get up on stage with these cats. You just couldn't have some sugar daddy buy you a pretty dress or go out and buy a nice suit and learn a few songs and get up on stage and boom, you're on the train with Duke and them. It just didn't work that way. You had to go through a screening process that was ferocious. Ferocious. Sure, you can sing, but what else do you do? Well, I smile and look pretty on stage. But what else do you do? Well, I do get my hair done. Well, what else do you do? Well, my sugar daddy's giving me money to buy a wardrobe. But now, it's the bar is so low, and the bar is so low. It's just there's gonna be a backlash. I feel about it. I don't want to get away from what I'm talking about. Your question. You had to do more than just be pretty, be handsome, and sing. You had to immerse yourself into the lives of the cats you were with, because you're on a train, on a bus, an unair-conditioned bus, doing 30 dates, doing 27 concerts somewhere in the South or the Midwest with cats who are screaming. I mean, these guys, you played with some of the guys who are still around, who tell you the stories. And the vocalists on the train or bus with them had to be comparable in their knowledge of what was going down. When you were handed a piece of music or something, they didn't have time to work with the piano player in the back of the train, whatever. You had to hit it that minute, and there was respect with that. So you brought to the stage more than just performance. You brought an artistry as a vocalist, which is somehow Motown. Well, get Motown. You see the Funk Brothers?
Yeah, of course.
They explained it so well in that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. See the Funk Brothers go. Barry, God bless him. He's a wonderful brother, and he made a lot of money. Him and Smokey, blah 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 blah. But the wall was built because it said that you could become a major star just by marketing, and that was never marketing. There was no such thing as marketing in the arts before that. Your worth as a performer, or as an artist, or as a musician, was based upon how well you interpreted what was written in front of you and how well you put your own pathos into it, not how well you look. Barry just took a bunch of cats, a bunch of girls, whatever, and said, here's what song you're going to do, dress in this, conk your hair back, learn some steps, boom. And even I'm guilty of that. I went through my whole childhood never knowing that Jim Jamerson and that even played behind that stuff. Their names weren't even mentioned on the records. Never mentioned on the records, not once.
Almost none of those R&B records were.
None of them. None of them.
Yeah.
It's a shame. And that's the wall that was built. And I feel that it's
It
break-
became then like the vocalists and then the band. As opposed
animosity.
Right.
You talk to these old cats, man, and they're actually, when you step on their stage, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Rightly so, because some of them are starving, they're starving. And there's people who, God bless them, make all the money you can, do what you got to do, but the playing field is so uneven now. You can just look real good and work out in the gym a little bit and get some implants, become a millionaire tomorrow. You can learn, you spend all your life. Good.
No, I was going to make a joke, but I decided not to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you looked at me when you said something about implants and go to the gym and
I still cut it off, man. I just said the hell with that.
Listen, we're talking some interesting background here, and I want to get back to this stuff. But I also want to just get to your personal story. and about what brought you to this point of writing the survival handbook for the performing vocalist, or your Billy Strayhorn things, or your big project that you're working on right now, the big, wasn't it? Big,
Cross that river.
Cross that river,
Yeah.
which is incredible. So my question is, okay, so you're in Pittsburgh, you got your head handed to you on bandstand or something like that. You had to go home and learn all these things. What was your first professional steps, and how did you start getting paid to sing, and how did you leave home, and how did all those things happen?
The thrill of it, you know, the thrill. I mean, the ego, of course. I mean, that you can't deny that. I could talk about how wonderful it is and spiritual you get from the stage, but there's a small part of it that is about ego and about you wanting to express what you are through this medium. It had a lot to do with it, and I just felt that this was my voice in life. I felt that I could say what I am as a human being, and people could understand it, other than any other thing that I might try to do. I haven't tried much, of course. You know,
What was the first gig that you had as Alan Harris, singing in a club somewhere under your name that you got paid for and that you hired a band for, or were you appearing with a band, or
I
how
was
did
appearing with a band. I was appearing with
what band, where, and when? How did that happen?
at a VFW club. It was snowing. It was 1976, and Don Bates, who was in Five Satins. Remember Five Satins?
Sure.
Baby, here I am. That boy was the name of the song. And I had this guitar part. I love that guitar part. And he lost his voice one night. We were doing a VFW, a Polish wedding. And they had pig in the blankets and that, and we were starving. They were making $25 a night, each band member. And the guy said, "We need a singer." I said, "Well, you got 3 months. I know the whole show. So I'll throw some stuff in." And that did it. I got up on stage and pulled out some of the standards with the band, put a little Earth, Wind, and Fire in there. We did some Motown. We just mixed it up, and that was it. The bug hit me, and the band and I defected. You know, and we thought, this is it. We're going to just get away from this guy, and the producer's going to find us. We're going to be rich and famous. And, you know, think about business, man. You know, a year later, we're making $35 a night. Because we didn't have Dawn with us. And we split his fee. It was a tough pill to swallow.
So you're based in Pittsburgh at this time?
Based in Pittsburgh.
Okay, how did it happen that you left Pittsburgh, and did you stay with that band for a long time, or did you go out on your own? Were you working with a piano player, let's say, that you were shedding with?
Yeah.
What brought you to New York for the first time? Who were some of the big stars, big name performers that you encountered for the first time as a professional, you know?
As a vocalist, my first real mentor was Tony Bennett. I was doing a show band / jazz thing in Florida, the road thing, and he was doing a show there for Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren was they were giving her a film award, lifetime film award, and a friend of mine called me who was booking a gig and said, "Tony Bennett's doing a show. We need a warm-up act tonight. Can you come?"
Open for Tony Bennett.
It was deep. It was deep.
I guess it's called a break, right?
It's called yes. And I went to the store, and at the time he had a song out called "When Will the Bell Ring for Me."
Oh, yeah, sure.
Great tune by Charles DeForest, I think it is. Beautiful tune. He did a lot of Johnny Carson. He was just when he was making his way again. And I went there, and the keyboard player and I got together, and I picked the guitar, and we worked it out. And that night, I did it for him while he was having dinner with Sophia Loren. It was deep, man. It was real deep. I was like beside myself, you know. Sophia Loren, and she still looked incredible, you know. And he came up to me and said, "What are you doing here in Florida?" I said, "Well, making a living." He said, "Well, come up to New York, hang with me." So he brought me up to New York for a week, and I hung out with him at his crib.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it was deep. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And I was still a puppy, you know. I still thought Tony Bennett, all right. He was. This was 1989. Now he wasn't really.
89.
Right. It was 91 when he really hit it. He started coming back. Remember?
Right.
So of course I knew who Tony Bennett was, but I didn't give him his, as they say on the street, his props. I didn't give him his props the way I should, and I was hard headed. He was trying to line some showcase stuff for me, and I said, "No, I can do it my own." I put my own band. Oh yeah. We laugh about that now when I get together with him. But he was an integral part with me moving in this direction here in New York City.
What happened between 1975 and 1989? those 14 years, where were you? What were you doing? Because
Well,
you're in Pittsburgh, then you're in Florida.
I went to Atlanta.
Okay, so
I'm sorry. Okay.
this is your life
This is
story.
my life
tonight.
story.
So
Oh,
we want to
man.
know where you went, what you were
All right,
doing.
after getting out of jail. No, I was in jail.
Do you recognize this voice? Immigration.
A keyboard player, Tony.
Well, I knew a cat who knew him
Oh.
in jail.
Guy Tony Law. We were doing a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and that we could do it. Right, it was weird. It was an eclectic show of just junk. It was. We were throwing everything into the mix. We were trying to get paid. We were trying to make a payday, and he had a gig in Atlanta, a house gig, and he said, "I got a house gig. Come down with me. We'll put a band together in Atlanta." I said, "Fine." And I think I had $75 in my pocket. I filled my car up and went down to Atlanta. And from there, I started to meet the artists who were in Atlanta at the time, in the jazz scene.
And who were they?
Ojeda Penn, Jimmy Jackson, you know Jimmy Jackson? Drummer, you know Jimmy Jackson, Moses. It was a small, tight group of cats who were Dan Wall.
Oh, Dan
Dan Wall.
Wall, right.
Oregon, right?
Yeah, and piano. This is a lot. I can't spend so many years, and I really got to hone my craft there. All the stuff that I compiled in my psyche in Pittsburgh, as far as my song selection, what kind of voice am I going to use? I've done so much of it to that point, trying to eat, being in college and that I really couldn't find a voice. One minute I might be Marvin Gaye, the next minute I might do something on Earth and Philip Bailey. I had a falsetto. It was really untested. So this was a good proving ground for me because the cats that I encountered there were serious. They were serious about what they were doing, and they had a small little niche that I was fortunate enough to get in with them, and I perfected my voice through them.
Did you mention college?
Mm-hmm.
Where did you go to college?
Went to California State College.
Where?
In Pennsylvania. And I went there on a basketball scholarship.
Did you say California?
California
State
State is in Monongahela Valley. Monongahela Valley. It's a beautiful school. And I went there. I was a pretty good ball player. You know, wouldn't make the NBA, but I was enough to just get chicks, cheerleading.
But tell me what you really think.
That's all it was, And I stumbled through there. It was a fun time for me, Being from New York at the time, I thought I knew everything going to that area. I thought everyone was country. I had a chip on my shoulder. I really did. And but being in that environment at the time, there was so many breaths of fresh air from folk music. Students from over the seas have brought some Celtic sounds and African rhythms, and it was really good. The years there were really wonderful for my development as far as my rhythm intake. My voice didn't progress at all there.
What does that mean? But again, for folks who might not understand as it goes by, rhythmic intake. What's that?
We all have, I know myself, we all have a beat that we grew up with, in our house. Even though you might forget it, when you hear it, subconsciously it's there. Every Thanksgiving when you're with the folks, you feel it. It's a rhythm that we have, that we're born with. And you carry that with you throughout your life. Some people are able to take that and do something with it greater than they are, Other people are able to bring other sounds from other people's families and experiences and grow with that, almost like a chameleon. I've been fortunate enough to do that. College, being with these people, being with the students around me from different lifestyles and that, helped me develop that. So that when I embarked upon a solo career as a performer, I was able to call that to my to the front when I was performing. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
A lot of sense.
I was noticing that a lot of the gigs that you were doing at this particular time, between 75 and 80, were more kind of like rhythm and blues and soul-based type of groups. Now, were you still singing a lot of jazz, like trying to sneak it in when you could?
Oh, yes, I was. I was doing that a lot. I felt that a wall needed to be grow up and down. Because being a guitarist, I encountered that a lot as a vocalist, because I would go into the gigs and not bring my guitar. You know, they'd hire me, and I would bring my guitar, and I'd feel that wall that a lot of vocalists, that a lot of musicians have with vocalists, because they're used to someone coming on the stage who, first of all, is prepared,
Yeah.
who feels that this is my gig, because as you know, in your development, when you were coming up trying to make your way, a lot of people won't hire you unless you have a vocalist with you, which is crazy, and rightly so. You get angry. You can't get the gig unless you have a vocalist. And bear in mind, it could be anybody. Nothing vocalist, and the prettier the better.
Right.
The prettier the better. And I encountered that. I felt that. What was the question again?
Singing jazz in between.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
There was a wall that needed to be
right. There was a wall broken, and plus, for my own growth as an artist, you can only do so many "ooh baby, 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 I love you, baby, baby." Woo, 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 woo. You can only do so much of that, and after a while, it becomes rote. You just more or less, it's vaudeville. After a while, you're doing this. So going back into the American Songbook tempered me and really tested my mettle, because the discography that you had to go back to and listen to the greats before you that were doing this stuff, just even trying to mimic them was a growth in itself. The R&B thing, I found there was such a ceiling on it. All you had to do was just look good, dance a little bit, and have some sort of gimmick and carry that through your career. With this thing called jazz, you find a new voice with it every time you step on stage. I do a song that I've done 100 times, and I could bet I'll do it differently each time with different cats. It depends on the cats that you're with. What you bring to the stage, they'll bring a new flavor to that song. I couldn't find that with R&B, which caused me to get back into this cycle of jazz, just to grow as an artist.
Do you find with a lot of young vocalists these days that do they stand a tougher chance on like breaking that wall down, or because like for example, some of the singers we had in Aspen, I find that it was easier for some of them to get in touch with the true roots of jazz than for others. Mm-hmm. Do you think as a whole with young singers it's easier or harder than it was for you, like say under the same circumstances? Because I mean, no young singers these days I think really start out singing jazz. Right. They always kind of back their way into jazz. What do you see for young singers nowadays?
I'm hopeful. I was a curmudgeon, and I was the devil's advocate a few years ago. But doing now that I'm doing more clinics and I'm exposed to what schools are pushing out, I'm really hopeful. But I'm also scared for them, because the allurement of the money that could be made doing something other than jazz is frightening. We didn't have that when I was growing up. I mean, you might hit a hit, you might do a little hit, and record company sign you, and they give you a car. You buy your mom a house, and you do maybe 200 dates out of the year. I mean, the Temptations do 256 days out of the year. Sure. Them brothers hump. Britney Spears was like a month. She's tired. Ashley Simpson, I bit that the throat. Yeah, right. She made $2.8 million. This little girl made $2.8 million.
It doesn't buy what it used to.
Singing the tracks.
Yeah. Right. I mean, so the allurement and the temptation of stepping out of this genre is so much easier than it was when I was growing up, because they want you to step out of it because they can make money off of you more. And there's a business plans for you where there wasn't when I was growing up. There was no business plan. You just sang, and hopefully you hope that your manager or your record company didn't rip you off. Now you have checks and balances. You can look at your quarterly thing. I mean, these young musicians know this stuff.
But someone like Nat Cole, let's talk about Nat, or even Ray Charles. I love the movie, by the way. I don't know if you saw it.
Yeah.
Have you seen it yet?
You know what? I'm gonna be shot. I'm waiting.
I haven't either.
I've been on the road. I
I'm
just
telling you.
and I don't just see it. I want to see where I can soak in, come home, and just soak it in.
What he's gonna do is walk down the street here and buy it off one of the brothers.
Isn't that Pookie Head in there? Isn't that Peanut Head? Right. Peanut Head will be in the camera.
$5.
But you see, but someone like Nat Cole and people like Ray Charles. I mean, in terms of getting way past jazz. People who started, the Ray started imitating Nat Cole. Nat Cole, when I was growing up, nobody was talking about what a wonderful pianist. He was Ramblin' Rose and all those records that he had. Nobody even knew he played piano or sang jazz.
Exactly.
So it's something that some of your role models and idols, I assume, also, I would say, went commercial, but did go commercial. And Ray Charles did decide to do country western music probably because he felt it.
Right.
You know.
But we're talking about phenoms. This is different. I mean, I'm not even. I'm just talking about
because they built to.
Yeah, right. I mean, we're talking about someone who could just pick up
phone book and sing it, right?
And we run into those people every now and then that when they just walk into the room, you can just tell from the aura about them that wow, they just have it. And then when they get down and play or sing, it just enhances that. That's different. They could do a Ramblin' Rose or whatever. I'm just talking about the person who is just making their way in life, who is good at what they do and just wants their voice to be heard and work hard at it. And they're really not going to cause that person in the back at the supper club to drop their fork unless there's some sort of marketing thing ahead of them heralding it, you know? Oh, wow, this is supposed to be happening tonight. I better pay attention, you know? That's what I'm talking about.
What about these young singers that we encounter who don't have the experience that we had as musicians and certainly that you had as a singer, which is all those nights and all those Polish VFWs that you were talking about and all those restaurants and all those gigs that we all did hundreds and hundreds of nights just out there. And it seems to me it's odd that these kids are in school at the conservatory studying. They have probably done 3 gigs in their life. They don't know the first thing about the first thing about it. And not that like you're the spokesman for all singers, but where did this thing happen? That young vocalists think that they're being put upon if they're asked to entertain. Oh, I don't entertain. I just walk out there on the stage and just sing my song, and I don't smile, I don't talk,
I blame marketing for that. I mean, that to me, that's been the biggest monster in the sky. That I don't know about you. When I was growing up, it was about liberal arts. I mean, you had to read the classics, and you had to behave in public. Because people talked about you. They told your mama, they told your dad. You walked down the street, you did something crazy. By the time you reached your apartment building or house, whoa! It was like the word traveled.
Even the neighbors
Right,
ready.
Whoop him, please, and call me at work. And if you can't whoop him, I will come and whoop him for you. And that's what it was. I mean, so
Belt would be ready, right?
That's right.
what was the question? God, no, okay, right. So it's. Yeah, I see it, and I see the answers because, marketing. Marketing says that you're going to be a star, and this is what we're going to do. And they actually know the steps it takes to get them there on paper. And they memorize the show that they're going to do. They're going to do, what, a 80-minute show or whatever, and they memorize that show. But take them out of that context, and they jump on stage with a cat like Christian or you, and say, ladies and gentlemen, blah, 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 from Warner Brothers Records, a new 21-year-old hitching station, and come up and sit in, they're lost. I mean, unless you do their show, unless they come up there with their show. And I think that has been lacking with what is being taught. It's called paying dues.
That's right.
It's called paying dues. And who's to blame for that? I don't know. Maybe there's not enough venues now that cater to that. There's not enough venues that actually kick your butt. It's all self-made now. The venues are made for you to succeed if they want you to. Because there's a machinery that says, this is the person. They all get together. This is the person that we're going to put out there. We're going to do Saturday Night Live. We're going to do Levi Jean commercial. We're going to do a movie thing. And this person might be 19 years old. They're just in the headlights like a deer. What to do. And we see them all the time. They come to our shows. And I ask them to sit in just to be ugly. Please come up here. Please. Yeah, we'll do your song. Please come up here. I'd love for you to come up. It's okay. I have a voice. You're saying, you know how it is, man. And I feel sorry for them because, well, they're going to make a lot of money, of course. But at the end of the day, they're going to find out that growth thing that hits them, which hits me and hits all of us, is going to be lacking because they're going to find out that it's a cellophane wall there for them. They're going to believe their own press. And that's the downfall with any artist.
All right, so you came to so we were trying to fill in those years in between the
we're still there.
mid-70s and I'm determined to get out of you
Okay.
a chronological thing for the archive about your career and your life. So I just want to just keep on that track just for a moment. So you went to college, went to California College in Pennsylvania. And what was your major when you were there? Was it music?
No, it was biology.
Okay, right. Okay.
Biology.
Okay.
Which was a bad move because, well, you know, what? Amoeba this? So I like a job here with the EMV. I study biology. That cool? What? No.
Well, it's what makes you who you are.
It made, well, I did it for a number of reasons, not for the music, just because I was basically lost for a minute. I was in shell shock socially I was in shell shock. 'Cause I come from New York. I come from very cushion surrounding. My family was a product of the Harlem Renaissance. You know, my grandmother stepped off of a farm in North Carolina and determined to take her two daughters to New York, and totally wiped out any memory of what they came from. There was an effort with that. I mean, they were in the company of the Langston Hughes and all that. They all came to New York for one reason: become part of this American dream. And since they don't like us, we need to like them. So we're going to study everything we can European, talk like them, act like them, sing like them, play the music like them. And at the end of the day, we're going to be part of this melting pot. That's the people who raised me. They put that in my mind. Every day, you had to be home at a certain time, or they came looking for you. It was deep. When we sat at my mother's table, you couldn't wear a hat. I mean, you didn't wear sneakers in my mother's house. My mother, she'd take your head off. You know, may I please, thank you. You couldn't run through the parlor. There was adults sitting in the room. My aunt was sitting with my mother, with my father, my whatever, anybody over adult. You had to wait in the doorway to be heard. And it might be an eternity. You might want to watch Mr. Ed. You know? Bonanza's on and the TV's on the other side of the apartment. The parlor's here and I can get to the other side of the apartment. You had to wait. You can just run to the house. And even then they might not acknowledge you. They might glance at you and you know that look.
That's right.
That look, you know, boom, wow. And so that's how I grew up and interpreted my world through that. But when I left New York and moved to another part of the country that was still involved in an agrarian lifestyle, black agrarian lifestyle, where people still basically were working class people in the earth. You know, my grandfather was a farmer. You know, like he was uncouth. You know, it was deep. And the people who I went to school with in that area from New York, they didn't walk the same drummer I did. They didn't know about opera, Tosca. You know, I was 5 years old. You know, I met Leontine Price. You know, she's having a drink. My aunt, Leontine Price. Boom. You know, I saw Turandot. I mean, I had to sit through Das Rango. Sit through it. You imagine a little kid sitting through that? No. Yeah. Okay, that's my mother. And she made you sit. It's like this. You sit through that. I mean, it's deep stuff, you know. Like I said, Arthur Mitchell grew up next door to us. You know, my mother and him were childhood playmates. You know, she went with him on his first edition with Balanchine. So that's the type of lifestyle that people of color in the Harlem Renaissance were about. It wasn't about scanning and grinning and we got to act like white folks. It wasn't that. It was just that we got to be part of this dream right quick because everyone else is becoming part of it. There was 6 million folks killed in Nazi Germany, 6 million Jews, and they're part of the dream. Bam! How did they do it? Okay, well, we got to learn how to do it. And that's what they tried and did. They said we have to drop this whole agrarian thing loose and become whatever it is, become part of it. As we see now, circa 2004, they still don't accept us. You know, they still don't accept us. They're still trying to, whatever. I don't want to get into that.
No.
I don't get into that. But you know,
I think you do.
All the work of those beautiful things that were written, the authors, the poets, the musicians, you know, all of them. It's almost for naught now. It's almost for naught. I mean, some people who actually turned their back on a lot of stuff to get to this point. Harlem, you know, a lot of stuff. There's a lot of folks they left behind back on the farm. They said, we got to go. I mean, you go back, I remember going with my mother back down to bury my grandmother, back down in Hamlin, North Carolina, home of John Coltrane, Hamlin, North Carolina, and I thought I was in another world. These are my peeps, you know, that's how insular they made this thing called the Harlem Renaissance. They're insular. I couldn't even understand them. You couldn't, Allan? That couldn't, Allan. That your Hannah young boy. That's your Hannah young boy. He up there in New York. Good boy. He sing. He gonna be famous. Come on down there. Come on down, meet Aunt Pearlie. She down there. Aunt Pearlie, you look just like Cousin Boo. Cousin Boo. That's cause I was in shock. I was like roots, man. It's like, God. I was like, wow. But that's how beautiful we are as a people to cut, we turn our back on our own selves, become part of this thing called white America, and they still don't want us. They still don't want us. It's amazing.
Why? Why don't they want you?
Embarrassment. Embarrassment. They're embarrassed about what we have done to each other. It's embarrassing. Slavery is embarrassment. My white peers, friends, they don't talk about it. These are educated people. You bring it up, they're like, oh, well, that back then is, what about P. Diddy? Huh? He making money? What about Michael Jordan? Okay, Oprah. I said, you can't fight that stuff, It's embarrassing, and we need to get over that as a people, white and black. It happened, it was wrong, let's move on, let's acknowledge it, and embrace it.
So then how do you interpret what's happened, let's say, for this culture that you're talking about? And you mentioned buying DVDs on the corner and all that kind of stuff. And what's happened to, let me ask you, in black popular culture, with students and with young people, why don't they know about Langston Hughes? Why don't they seem to care about Nat Cole and Richard Wright and Ralph Ellison and all those people? You are singing the kind of music that you sing, right? Who's your audience? Who's the audience?
Believe it or not.
Well, that's so my question is. Well, wait, let's say. So so at the same point that there is this embarrassment, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that you're right. What I'm saying is when people say, I don't know what I'm saying.
You are. I'm following you. Thanks.
Where has history fallen off the priority list? Because I think that all across the board, there's no sense of history anymore. I mean, I'll give you one.
You hit it right.
No, this is not a white thing.
No, I think that's all across the board. I think with youth in general, history is no longer a priority any way, shape, or form. I think you're also a sports fan. This is one reason why we get along on the other. I'll shut up. Pittsburgh Steelers.
I've seen them play football.
But I remember there was when Jackie Robinson, when they retired his number all over Major League Baseball, they did a big story on 2020, and they interviewed some of the current black great baseball players, and so many of them didn't know who Jackie Robinson was.
That blew my mind.
And I'm thinking, how could you possibly be a African-American professional baseball player and not know who Jackie Robinson is? That's like wanting to play jazz and not know who Charlie Parker is.
I know that. But
Why is that? What happened?
There's different levels. I'm gonna take the high road for a minute. A lot of it's apathy. I mean, the human condition can only stand so much. I mean, in the past 200 years, there really hasn't been any culture that has come upon the shores of this place we call America that has had to give up so much for so little than us. And of course, there's the Khmer Rouge, there's the Holocaust, some horrible stuff has happened. But through all of that misery, they were able to still keep their name and where they came from. You and I have no idea where we come from. I'm Allan Harris. Allan Harris was a slave owner out in North Carolina. John Harris owned like a couple thousand acres of indigo plant in North Carolina. That's my name. And it's been a wonderful job in disconnecting us from where we come from. That's important. No other group of people who suffered, and a lot of people have suffered, they've all been able to retain what they are. In their psyche, in their children, whatever, they still remember that, yes, Rabbi Simon, he was in the Holocaust, but they still know where they come from. They still carry that with them. There's no logic to our culture anymore as people of color. We have to invent, when we stepped off that plantation, we actually had to invent something. We had to invent something because there was nothing for us. There was no book, no Quran, there was no Bible. There was nothing there that said, this is where y'all come from. Let's go back to this and start at this and move to Harlem, and that's what it is. We had to invent a whole bunch of stuff. And it was some dysfunctional stuff, too, when you look at the history of the past 50 years.
But what direct do you think does that play with, like, a lot of youngsters now? I mean, because what you're saying is absolutely correct. But, for example, our parents knew who Jackie Robinson was.
Of course.
But why is it now kids just not only... you just take for granted. I mean, like, you know, as young black children, you just grow up and you automatically know who Dr. Martin Luther King is. You just know these things because your parents are going to make you know that. And your culture that you grow up in are going to make you know that. Well, then, why is that not the same anymore?
The hope that we had as children. I mean, it was hopeful. I remember stepping off the train in North Carolina, right when we hit the border of North Carolina. It was 1950 something. I ain't gonna tell you what it is, but anyway. And my father, strong man, didn't want me to get off the train. Why? So I, hard as I am, I got off the train and looked. He didn't want to see his son see him drink at a colored water fountain. It was deep. That's embossed my mind to this day. But then all of a sudden, just a few years later, civil rights came into play. Martin Luther King, Selma, Alabama. There was hope. These kids that grow up now look back and this is what they're saying to us. They're saying to us elders. They're saying, "What did it do? What did it do?
Why do we need history?
Why it didn't do y'all no good. What good did it do? What did it do for you all?
Right.
Martin was shot. They still ain't got affirmative action. They still don't like y'all. They dragged that James Beard through the whatever. And I'm not saying what's right or wrong. And you see it in their music. In the music, it's almost like they're angry at us. Our own children are angry at us. Like we could have done more. Like what? Megan N was died. What do you want us to do? They're angry at us. That's why they've forgotten the history, because they don't want to remember it. They're saying to us, basically they're saying to us, shut up. Let's do it our way now. That's what they're saying. And believe it or not, in a very perverse way, it's working. These brothers are rich.
Yeah.
These
true American dream.
These young kids,
Right.
And they're clowns, but they are.
It's the American dream.
I saw Toby Keith. I saw Tim McGraw, Faith Hill's husband, actually on the American Music Awards saying he's doing an album with 50 Cent.
I understand it.
You know what I mean? That's deep. Duke Ellington couldn't get on a white bandstand. This is Duke Ellington. He's a genius. He couldn't at the height of his development as a young adolescent, as a young man, 40, whatever it was, he couldn't be seen on stage with white players.
That's right.
That's deep.
Yes.
That's deep.
Do you see it turning around?
I hope so, because I'm scared of this music, man. This music is... But...
Duke Ellington couldn't get on the white bandstand, but
Thank you.
now the people who are famous are playing.
Yeah, it's almost, we've created this Frankenstein now that, my grandfather used to say something to me all the time. I remember I was 14 years old and he shipped me to his farm, and I'd been there earlier in the summer. And 2 years had passed since I'd been there. So I was 14, just puberty had just come and gone. And I thought I was a bomb. So I got off the bus and I had a big fro at the time, and I was Bedford-Stuyvesant, I had a big fro and had an earring in my ear, and I freaked him out. And I remember him looking at me and saying, "Boy," he said, "Don't, they already want to knock you out, boy. Don't hand them the hammer." I looked at him, "Oh, shoot, Granddad, you know what you're talking about." But he was right. We become like a caricature of what. I mean, look at this stuff. Look at where we are, the bling bling and all that, and we're justifying it under the guise of I'm getting paid.
I'm getting paid.
That's what the young cats tell me. I come to my clinics, and these are well-educated young cats who are purveyors of this lifestyle, and that's what they say to me.
So
I'm getting paid.
do you feel a certain frustration that no matter what you tell them, they're still going to think that?
No, because the proof of this is when.
This is long standing.
Right. No. If you could just get them, once they get on the stage with me, it blows their mind. 'Cause they don't know. They don't know. They just see someone lip syncing, and that's what it is. You know, see some dancers. Once they actually get on stage with the real deal, I see the turnaround immediately in their faces, he and her faces. I see it immediately. It's not being presented to them. Once again, the marketing thing. It doesn't make money, so why should they give it to them? You know, when you're not exposed to something, then you're ignorant of it.
It's like the Spike Lee movie Bamboozled. I mean, like, that's what it's all about. The minstrelsy thing is back, and there's almost back in vogue now. So you want to play up a negative like your grandfather said to you, right? That they want to play up a negative stereotype, and people are willing to buy it and disrespect either wives or children or mothers by calling them names that in most ordinary societies people would punch somebody in the face if you called your mother or your sister a whore. I mean, that's the end of that. But right now, that's what people work with. But society being what it is, what you represent and what you do, is really why we invite you here this evening, is to hear your thoughts about things, and it's becoming a very clear picture. But I'm still determined to find out, as your wife is encouraging me here a little bit, just a little bit about your historical background, also just your story and what led to you becoming this icon that you've become now. And
But what happened when you left Florida?
that's the best way to.
I said we have to move to New York. You know, my wife made a conscious decision. I was comfortable. You know, I had a little house there, whatever, and food, and my car, and I was happy. And she was the one that really put the fire in it. She said, "You got to move. We got to permanently move to New York. You can always come back and do this." I said, "Okay, let's do it." And the first year was rough. I thought I was bombed down in my little world there. Came up here and just it was a wonderful time for me. One of the most immense growth periods. Where are we now? Time frame now. I'm trying to get back to where I was. Okay. Yeah, the old adage of if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. It's been done so much, it's been said so much, but it's so true. It is true. This is not the best place in the world, but it's the best place in the world to do what I do. You know, if you want to test your worth as an artist in this genre, this music called jazz, there's no better place to do it here because you're exposed to such a high caliber of cats who are sedentary here all the time. You know, in another place they pass through. You know, 2 weeks at a club, Midwest town, you might see a Chris McBride come in and you got a minute to talk to him. He might set up a jam, but that's it. Here, I see Christian like it's Popeye Chicken, you know what I mean? You know, like probably down the street hanging out. I can find him, you know. You'll find the cats that you read about and hear about on record. They live here. This is their world, and they're ready to impart upon you the knowledge that they've learned because they are relaxed, because it is their home. That's why I love it here. That's why I had to come here.
So what happened after your time with Tony Bennett, when Tony Bennett brought you up to New York for a week and kind of mentored you a little bit? What followed that?
A lot of soul searching, knowing that I really had a long way to go. Really. He more or less took the show, and I have it today. I don't have it today. I have it at my apartment. The set list he put together for me. He handwrote it. He drew a picture of me. I have it. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's really nice. He saw my show 3 or 4 times, and he more or less just shredded it. You know, he just shredded it. And I love him for that. He mentored me. He sat down and said, "This is what you need to do in your show." No one cares that you care how you're doing. I had a habit of doing that. Because when you're doing R&B, you're into that whole, let's get together and sing. I used to come on stage and say, "How y'all doing?" "Yeah, okay. Yo, you know, all that stuff. And Tony just tore that down. He said, "Why mask your inadequacies with that?" And I had an attitude. I said, "What do you mean? Why mask what you're doing? It's obvious that you don't know what you're doing, young man, because you're doing all this other stuff. There's nothing to do with what you should be doing, which is delivering the lyric." I had an attitude, man. Oh, he was beautiful with it. He was like, Pat was there. I was like, by the time he finished me, I was like, I hate Tony Bennett. I really hate Tony Bennett. I hate Tony Bennett so much. I hate him. Hurt me like that. But he was true, and the beautiful thing about him, he set up an engagement for me just to prove that, oh, he was awesome. He said, "Okay, young buck," you know, use the old term my grandfather would use. He said, all right, I'm gonna set up a little showcase for you and put your show together since you got it together. All right, fine. Don't even look at this. And he had to set up. He had 15 songs I need to do, and he mapped it out. And this is stuff Count Basie to Ellington. He said Fred Astaire sat down with him and mapped this out. You know, this is some real deal. I got the set list. It's beautiful. And I said, that's all right. You know, and we set up a little engagement in town. I'm not gonna name the club. And boy, it was what would you say? Oh, it's in your book. Okay, it's in your book. And man, that was the longest night in my life. Because he brought, not only did he come, Sammy Kahn came and introduced me. Yeah, man. Who's the great, he died, Sophisticated Ladies, English Haven. Right. Luther came with his wife, Billy. You know how Billy can be. Billy's like everyone's mother. Like, you know, she sat there and I was doing everything that Tony said I shouldn't do. I walked on the stage, I was pointing at people in the audience, I turned to the band, and I was just wild. I was like lost, man. And I looked down upon Billy, and Luke, you were there, Billy, and this is what Billy was like this.
Billy.
Allan Henderson.
And she was pretending to get into it, but it was so awful. The show, it really was. The show was so bad that her body language, after about the fifth song, this is exactly what she was doing.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's rough. That was rough.
You're trying to sing.
And I had like who did I have on percussion?
Candido.
I had Candido on
Oh, my
percussion.
God.
Tony got the whole band together for me. And he said, I want to get the band together for you, son. Whatever. Just put the show. And I said, I got the show. And oh man, it was just a long night. That was a long. If there's any watershed moment, that was it for me. And from that moment on, I realized that I know nothing. You know, I have to go back to whatever it is I need to go back to. And I went back to Florida. I actually sold my house the next month. We had 2 cars. I sold one of the cars. Got rid of one of our dogs. We had 2 dogs. Got rid of one of the dogs, man.
Dog had a supper because
They kept one dog. And we moved in this little place in Manhattan, man. It was like, wow. And I talked to all the cats who were here, and they said, you got to go to the jams. So, in my resume, I did this on the cruise ship, la 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 la. You know, I know my way. I did like the Burt Bacharach medley here. See, that's me with Sophia Loren, a picture with her. And like, you know, I had that tuxedo made for me. The one with the sparkles on it and the dancing girls. That's the show I put together when I was like, you know, in Orlando. So can I get a gig here at like at Smalls? Right. You know what I'm saying? Oh boy, it was deep, man. I'm like with Dave Hazeltine one night, and then Dave Bicassi the next night, and Dave Finks on bass, and I mean these cats look at me like this brother's out of his mind. I'm like, okay, when I come out on the stage, I'm gonna like jump into that one tune, and when I modulate into that next change, y'all hit that. I was just stupid. I was just stupid. It was really, I got crushed. I got crushed, man. So I said, I better sit at the feet of someone who can show me just right. Sit at the feet of some mentors, and that's what happened. I just sat with the old guard, and they just.
who was the mentor? Who would be
Luther was one. I mean, I laid on Luther's doorstep, and it was rough, because I dragged him out of a busy night, him and Billy. You know Luther Henderson, late Luther Henderson, and you know who he is. He's
Tony Award winner.
oh, he's look him up. I don't want to talk about him now. Just look him up. You'll know. And Tony Bennett dragged him out to see this young kid. He didn't want to come. He's busy. He was in the middle of, I forget what it is. He was doing English Haven. He was in the middle of English Haven at the time. And Tony went to him and said, can you work with him? And Luther said, this is what Luther actually said. He went like this. And Billy behind him said, no. Oh, it was deep. It was deep. It was deep. Oh, yeah, man. What did I tell you? What should I tell you? And I begged and cajoled. It took me about 2 weeks, man, and finally, they set up parameters for me. They said, just don't bring none of that stuff. Just if you're gonna come, you're gonna be here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Wednesdays and Fridays, and don't be late. Luther, just don't be late. And it was the real deal. He took my whole show and he took my whole persona. And he said, "This is what you need to do with yourself as an artist first. You're a performer. You better go back to West Baumhall or whatever. This is New York. You want to become an artist, this is what you need to develop." And it was wonderful, really wonderful working with them.
Among the people that Luther was the musical director and mentor to was Lena Horne, just for starters. So that's the level. That's the level of what you're talking about. He was also the guy who orchestrated he's the guy that Duke Ellington turned to orchestrate his pieces for orchestras. So that's the level of who's accepting you here. Well, listen, we're kind of, I guess, rounding third base here in our interview. I'm curious about this piece that you're working on that I've been reading the emails about and reading the reviews about, and it's a very huge undertaking. I wondered if you could introduce it to everybody and tell everyone about this historical epic that you're working on.
I've written a piece about a runaway slave circa 1855. Louisiana runs away to Texas and becomes a black cowboy. Why, you might ask, would I do something like this? First off, I get to show my guitar chops a little bit through this. Secondly, I get to compose and release some of that. But mainly as a male, a man of color, this was basically one of the few times in our development in this country where there was an even playing field with our white counterparts. As strange as we're seeing out. Now, come with me with this. I know who it is. Come with me. 1860 to 1910 was the major cattle drives. They moved cattle. People had to be fed at the Civil War and that. South Reconstruction. It's hard work. The playing field was level for white and black. For a period of 20 years, white and black workers actually made the same amount of money. They were integrated. They slept together, same bunkhouse underneath the stars. They worked on the same ranches. It's documented. It's amazing how they can just wipe stuff out. Isn't it amazing? Marketing. There it is again. That ugly word, marketing. It's amazing how they can just wipe events that are integral to our getting along with each other, as Americans, so we can know about each other. It's amazing how they can just wash it out of our books and out of our psyche. Well, I embarked upon this project called Cross that River to more or less put my little input in it and wake people up a little bit, especially children. Not just children of color, just children, American children and all, to know that there was something more past Stephen Fetchit and Amos and Andy and Duke Ellington, and there was something else that was noble. We weren't just porters and picking cotton. There was a noble thing that we did that was heralded. It's not written in the books and that because for some reason they don't want you to know about it. I don't know why. Of course you know why. I'm just being nice for the camera. Who's gonna see it? Allan Harris. I saw the video. Very dark human being. Very dark. Yeah. And Allan Harris, a very bitter man, isn't he? You sure he sings? And so what started as me just releasing some things, innate things in me that were dormant, has just mushroomed now, has just morphed that a whole grassroots following is starting with this, white and black, from all across America. We presented this out in Colorado, and white ranchers who fourth and fifth generation in America have come out with pictures of black workers who worked on the cattle ranch with them. They've been sending me stuff from Texas. It's been really a wonderful, wonderful journey for me because I grew up watching Lone Ranger and Superman and white folks, white men in Parra. Yeah, the only powerful guy I knew was the cat that whooped my butt, my father. And even then, my mother even told him where to go at times. So it was important for me, and I think it's important for anybody who doesn't have these role models to know that there was some point in our development that made this nation happen, that we were part of it. We were men. We were part of this thing called America. We helped build things other than just shuffling and can I get your bag, Mr. Bennett, There's something that we did too. We rode horses and we got the bad guys too. And I find out that 40% of us, 40% of the cowboys were black. Isn't that deep? How could they smother that? That's amazing. 40% of the cowboys that worked on the cattle trails between 1860 and 1910 were people of color. That's beautiful.
I wonder if John Wayne knew that.
I mean, it's amazing.
Or Herb Jefferson.
Oh, Herb, Herb, yeah. Herb, he just got inducted into the National Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Right.
Herb Jeffries did.
And he was making films back in the 30s.
Oh, Bronze Buckaroo. He was bad, wasn't he? Was he clean?
It wasn't exactly unknown.
Oh, he was clean. He was clean. I actually read an article once that someone said he wasn't black, he was Italian. Did anybody read that article? Yeah. What the hell was it at? Somebody spread that. But anyway, that's why I embarked upon this. And what started off with me just, once again, releasing a lot of pathos now has opened up many doors for me in the country world, in the bluegrass world. And I've had those walls in my mind about that, because, you know, ding, 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 you know what I'm saying? When you hear that music, you say, oh, man.
But didn't Ray Charles kind of break that down a long time ago?
He did, but you know what? I'm going to go on camera with this, and I know someone's going to smack me. He was safe for a lot of white folks because he was blind. See, when you look at the world through the eyes of a white man and a black man, you have to realize that he looks at us differently than we look at each other. You know, we look at each other and we see strong black men and whatever. White men I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about shit now. We've always been a threat. We've always been a threat, you know, for some fear. It's called the Nate Turner theory, you know. Don't let them all congregate too much, because you know what'll happen. You get a bunch of niggas together and stuff.
Nat Turner,
It's called the Nat Turner theory, you know, the Nat Turner syndrome, that they feel that we're a threat, you know. Amazing, you know, 40 years of doing what they did to us. By now they realize if we hadn't messed with y'all now, ain't nothing gonna happen. Please, we're some beautiful folks. And so that's why I embarked upon this, just to cross a lot of genres. Bluegrass, the country. Country music is coming to Manhattan in November. You know that? Country Music Awards are coming the first time, leaving Grand Ole Opry. And just to test the water, you know, I forget it was the Grand Ole Opry, Minnie Pearl, whatever, Charlie Pratt. I just sent out a little blip about this, and the response has been just beautiful. And I've actually asked those in that arena, why haven't there been any whatever? They said, well, no one has really come into it. You know, there's been always that psychological barrier. And we're guilty of that too.
Yeah.
You know, we get scared of stuff, you know. We've been taught that, don't go over there. That Mick Jenkins place. That white man crazy. Don't go over there in the field. You know, we got that. We have that too. So that's why I wrote this, just to empower the new generation, past the Generation X, the new kids that are coming up, so they understand that we help make this country beautiful too. I mean, we're part of this melting pot. A real serious part of it, you know, the West. You know, when people talk about America, they talk about the West. It's like, yeah, the West. We were a big part of what was going on out there. That's why. You're welcome.
At this point, we open it up to the floor for questions and or comments for Mr. Harris. And does anyone would like to ask a question or say something?
I have a lot of questions, but I know you do some master classes around in New York City, and you're doing something with Abby Lincoln in March. At the
Stand up. The producer's here right now.
Okay. Are they? Okay. Will you be doing any more master classes in New York City? And if so, do you have an email address where you can be contacted?
I sure do. And I'll give it to you. It's allanharris.com. allanharris.com. You go on there. And I have a manual that survival handbook for the performing art vocalist, which walks through a lot of things that I had to walk through. It's a little brief thing. I'm going to be doing one in February. I'm crazy right now, but in March. I'm doing one in March. Matter of fact, this is, give me that. Give me that. I got it. I have to acknowledge this company, but one especially Gene Davis. I mean, he's a documentarian. A&E's Ella Fitzgerald, I mean, Rosemary Clooney, I mean, the list goes on and on of the things that he's a hell of a writer, and he's going to will his disc to me one day. He's a producer on the show with Abby Lincoln, and you want to talk about a historian, someone if you want to know about the black experience seen through the eyes of the Renaissance. What I mean by the Renaissance is the development of us as a people stepping off that thing called the field, the farm, because it was a beautiful time for us, and there was like a cusp there. I mean, to talk to Gene. Gene's a font of knowledge. He's just one of them. And he's producing the show, Abby Lincoln's show, and what I'm doing, I'm grateful for that. Hello, Gene. Hi. Also, this is Sheila Anderson, WBGO. He plays many Christian's records and Ron's records. I am. And my class, it basically is not a class that you come and I impart upon wisdom to you. It's not about that. Well, it's a workshop that I try to see things that you are too close to see, you know, because we have an image of ourselves, and sometimes that image is a little distorted, good or bad. And you need someone outside of your circle of people, loved ones, family. You need someone who can actually look at what you do and say, if you just lean it to this way or that way, you can bring out what you're trying to say. Because we're all trying to please. We all want to please. You know, we want to please the audience, we want to please ourselves, whatever. But you have to break past that and realize that when you start learning how to please yourself, then everyone else will come with you. And that's hard. Because we're not taught to please ourselves. We're not taught to please ourselves.
I have one quick question. One more.
If you want to help me other people, because it's short time.
Well, you could always do a short one. Okay. Sorry. There was an album that came out on Verve Records where they took Carmen McRae and other jazz singers and they updated it with electronic music, trying to keep the interest.
I'm gonna let. Sure. Gene has the last interview with Carmen McRae. He knew her personally. I'm gonna let him answer that. Really, he really knows.
Well, I was just saying they took an album and they tried to update the music with electronic music, and I wanted to know. I mean, they're trying to keep the interest of jazz singers with new generations of people who would not normally buy an old Sarabon record.
You know what? There's nothing wrong with that if it's for the betterment of what if it works. But right. I mean, yeah. It's like this is Carmen.
I have a 26-year-old son who brought that home and attempted to explain to me what people were doing, and I said to him, the difficulty of evolution is the lack of information about what you're working with. If you've never listened to Sarah Vaughan, how are you going to remix her? If you don't understand the structure of her background with Dizzy Gillespie, how are you going to remix her? You can't. We have so many young people, and this is what I wanted to ask you, who have been told you don't need education. How about 6 weeks of a theory class?
Oh, man.
How about 6 weeks of harmony class?
Right.
You know, when you talk about the failure of young people, it isn't that young people are less bright or talented, because they're not anymore.
Right.
The problem is that they've been convinced that they don't have to learn the craft.
Right.
And the second part of it is that we've forgotten how to read. So I'm not old enough to have known Billie Holiday or Fletcher Henderson, but my family, that music came to me, and they would sit down and say, now, if you listen very carefully, you'll hear Helen Humes, who actually sang like Ella Fitzgerald, but never got the credit. I didn't know who Helen Humes was until my parents told me and showed me how to listen. We have a tragedy on our hands, and this, as Sheila and I agree, has nothing to do with color. It has to do with the failure of the adult to teach the children, to pass the information, not just in music, just in the lack of reading.
Amen.
You know, since when does 20 seconds give you a news story? You know, it doesn't. You know, so all the things that I know from my dad and my grandmother and all the wonderful people that I'm a Philadelphia kid, and music was crazy there, you know, right? I know. We talked about it a long time ago.
That's right.
And there was no such thing as idleness, and it had nothing to do with economics, but that was because there was that post-World War II need to make sure that what we have accomplished as black people now manifests itself in our children. That's gone. And not just with black people, but with kids who are bright but illiterate, intelligent but dumb. You know, they're different words. So, I try. No, but I mean, but my son came home with that Verve. You know, Verve has an incredible
remixed,
catalog of everybody, and then he inherited everything. So when I heard it, I flipped out. Now I'd known Carmen McRae since I was 16 years old, you know, and knowing her evolution as a singer, who essentially started as a pianist. So most people don't even know that, even danced a minute, you know. But to just take her stuff and just boulderize it. I mean, if Norman Granz had heard what they did to Ella Fitzgerald on that album, he would have had a fit. You know, and what we have to do with young people is to convince them that there's a learning mechanism that makes you better than what you are and what you do. That's gone. I have a young friend who just finished the CD with Shannon. You remember Shannon? Very bright singer in the late 80s. I think could Let Me Dance.
Let the music play.
Right, okay. Except that when I said to him, well, now it's time for you to really realize that just sitting at a board doesn't make you a musician.
That's right.
And if I say to you, write a lead sheet for me, I want you to be able to write a lead sheet. You can't. It's in your head, and that's all well and good. You can verbalize, but you can't sit down and write it. So if there's a challenge to young people, it isn't to think that they've turned away from us. We failed in preparing them correctly.
Very good.
I don't want to say that that leads exactly into, frankly, what Christian and I and Wilhelmina and Greg, what we're trying to do here, which is to seriously to build a jazz museum, to make a place, because I'm a musician myself, and we tour around, and nobody can believe when they come to the States that there's not, like in a major city, like a huge museum. There's a wonderful place in Kansas City that talks about Kansas City jazz and a few other places, but there's not one.
And even in
thing that
Cleveland's Rock and
celebrates
Roll
it.
Museum offers some things that are
That's correct, and the Experience Music Project in Seattle and all different kind of places, but they can't believe it. So this kind of like underscores that need. Is there anyone on this side who wanted to get something in? Naomi, of course.
No, I'm saying.
This is Naomi Johnson, one of the dancer and educator and incredible person. Happy you're here tonight.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, I want to say thank you ever so much for taking the time to be here with us. Because without that education, it's true, it's not just the young people, but it's the older people too who don't know. I teach swing dancing at the Cotton Club on Monday nights, and when they feel that they're ready to do the dancing, how do you get that step? How do you do what you're doing? And it's the same thing like what you're doing. You have to teach from the bottom up in order for them to remain at the top. And that's one of the things that's lacking in our community, period. One of the things that I see and know and is important is the young people, though. Went to NYU, the Louis Armstrong House today, as well as Langston Hughes. They are thirsting. I mean, it's dry walls for what they need. So in your heart, please make a space for those children. Make a space for the adults. This is the year of giving. The year of giving is 2005. Make it your business. Take a little bit of time to teach, because that's what you do, and you do it well. And I thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you, family, for being here, each one of you. Bring somebody the next time.
That's right.
Make somebody know about this history and culture. It's so vital. It is ours, and we're willing to share. That's important. Peace and blessings.
Well, I was just curious to have Allan say a few words about his book, The Survival Handbook for the Performing Vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
Please lay a few words on us about that.
I have little anecdotes in here and practical stories.
It takes us, you know,
And yeah, this one is like messing with me. And what do you do? What do you do if you're backstage? And I'll just give you an example of some of the chapters. How do you deliver a lyric? What do you do if you walk into a club and the act that you're replacing is not there, of course, and the audience is there to see that act, not you? You still have to go on. How do you prepare your show for that as a vocalist? What do you do when you're backstage and the band kicks off a song and they have 10 minutes to do their thing before you get on stage? how do you tell your band what song to play that's going to be indicative of what you're doing? Many times it's train wrecks. You know, the vocalist won't sit with you and say, I'm going to open up with this song. Do not do Scrap from the Apple. You know, I'm going to do my one on love when I bring out. How do you get to the point where you can find an accompanist, someone who can bring out what you're about as an artist and work with you? How to find a manager, how to look for an agent. It's just so many things in here I can go through in this book. How to put your set list together, you know? And are you willing to alter it minutes before you go on stage, depending upon the type of audience you have in front of you? It might be raining outside, they might be unruly. The staff that's delivering drinks to them might not be good, so the audience might be in a bad mood. Are you willing to go with that? Can you go with that? You know, there's so many things that you don't learn in school that the School of Hard Knocks teaches you that I hope I can impart upon you in this, which is what my class will do, what I do in my class. And I will walk you through a few things. I will tell you to bring some material to the class and have you sing a few songs with me and the piano player and see how you are in front of an audience. You know, what is your, I'll give you this, I'll let you look at it, okay? So much in there, but I don't know where to begin with this.
Great.
Allan.
This is available on your website?
It's available on my website, yes it is. It's a Bible handbook.
Unfortunately, in Yiddish, we have a word which is called kavel, Kvell, and that means. Actually, I read my what was that?
Didn't I pay you?
What?
I'm so bad. I'm so bad. I know I am. I'm so bad. I am bad.
What? I conducted in Germany once. Oh. I got some stories that I'll share with you in 1989. But anyway, I guess what I was saying, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your story and everything. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Great.
Right here, John.
Right.
Yeah, no, I got it. What kind of? I'll just take one more bite.